Test, test. Yep. All right, good evening, everyone. We're both honored that you have us here tonight, and hopefully by the end of the presentation, we'll leave you with at least a couple good nuggets of information to help you stay safe out there. And your loved ones. And we're going to give a quick little introduction to ourselves real quick with one little fun fact. Jeremy?
Yes, I'm Jeremy McLain. I grew up surrounded by the woods in Skamania, Oregon, if any of you know where that is. My experiences started in the woods with my dad taking me back on backpacking trips every year since I was 10 years old. So, yes, we have been lost before out there. So.
Have you ever been lost?
Yes.
Yes. And Leigha, I've been serving on the SOSAR team for a year now. And one quick little fun fact of many, when I was 8 years old, my dad was airlifted from deep out of the Olympic Mountains for a blown out knee. And that was a pivotal moment in marking my interest in outdoor what if scenarios.
Yeah.
All right, and we did a quick show of hands. We'll do it again. A quick show of hands. If you have ever in the wilderness been turned around, disoriented, lost, injured, shivering in the dark with limited light, dead cell phone battery. Any of you, us included? Probably most of everyone. You can plan and be. This is touch screen. You can plan and be as prepared as possible, but that doesn't account for accidents happening. You can step on a sharp branch, twist your leg or ankle, fall into the water, hypothermia. Common scenarios is leaving the trail or leaving your group for a bio break and then getting turned around. And even then, maybe not even hearing your group or them hearing you because you're near a creek or water sounds and all sorts of interesting.
Sound doesn't travel very well in the woods.
No, and especially around water. All right, and these are some basic statistics just from last year alone. Tying in with this, we're going to show a quick little news video that first aired this last Thursday. And if for some reason that doesn't play, then we'll go back to this slide, but that touches on those statistics as well.
A few months ago, we told you about a shocking theft of the Skamania County Search and Rescue Team's gear. With the help of the community and a local fire department, the unit was able to replenish their supplies. And it's just in time for what the department says is a historic rise in rescues early this year. Fox 12's Dylan Scott has the story.
Typically, this is known as the slow period on the search and rescue front, but with already a dozen missions in the first quarter of 2025, the Skamania County Sheriff's Office says crews are working overtime to assist those in potentially dire situations.
We had 3 individuals that were stuck up there completely unprepared and hypothermic by the time we got to them, and it took everything we could to get them out.
It has been that kind of mountain to climb for Field Coordinator Kent Krumschmidt and the Skamania County Search and Rescue Team. One complex mission after the next to begin 2025.
It's been all over the place. There's no real pattern to it, but the amount of calls have definitely increased dramatically.
Thanks in part to the community they protect in the North Bonneville Fire Department, these volunteer crew members are now restocked and with a new home. What hasn't changed, the unpredictability of the terrain in this wilderness, the need to carry essentials, and to think ahead before taking on any outdoor gorge activity.
We think people rely on that phone. It gives them a feeling of safety, but having those backup skills, letting someone know where you go, and being prepared for that weather to change on you. It takes us, unfortunately, no matter what, we move as fast as we can, but it takes us time to assemble and respond.
This is our quiet time. This is where everybody, kind of is dormant and they're not coming out into the gorge to hike or recreate, and it was quite the opposite for 2025.
Skamania County Sheriff Summer Shire gushes with pride when she talks about the brave work the SARS team has already put forth, but is concerned about the strain these efforts put on the area's units and the funding cost if the calls come in at this magnitude.
It takes deputies away from the road to be able to enforce traffic laws and other crimes that we would be able to investigate, or proactive patrol like drug enforcement. And so it takes them away from that, and then the overtime for our agency, it's a money suck. It's really hard for us to fund this.
With the weather warming, foot and vehicle traffic will significantly increase in the next few months. And those protecting locals and tourists alike hope it will come with a little extra caution.
And you start out on a 2-hour hike and maybe something happens and it becomes a 4 or 6 hour event. So, carry the 10 essentials, be prepared for anything to change, carry a raincoat, and know where you're going.
Just for a little bit of reference, there were 54 rescue missions in 2024, and the Sheriff's Office says if things continue on this trend, they're certainly going to eclipse that here by the end of 2025. In Skamania County, Dylan Scott, Fox 12 Oregon.
All right. So we thought we'd share that with you.
I might mention that, does everyone know where Skamania County is? All right, cool. It's the north side of the gorge, and it contains a good portion of the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, which is a great place to find mushrooms. So that's why we're here.
Yes. And on that, while we're here, we're going to go into preparation for entering the backcountry. On the handouts that you have, that first handout, we're going to kind of reference those throughout the presentation. Before leaving home, and with the short time we have together today, we're just going to be covering the basic need-to-know information, just scratching the surface. It would be really easy for us to spend hours or days digging into all the fascinating elements of preparation for survival and making it out there. But we're going to do our best to keep it concise for you. And with that, we'll lead into this handout. We're going to momentarily talk about that. Before you leave home, there's the weeks or more before. Just a few highlights on that is knowing how to use a compass and map, and not just the one on your phone, but knowing how to use an actual compass and map, knowing how to use your GPS if that's what you're using. Not just having it, but actually knowing how to use it. And not waiting until you get out there to, not waiting until you get out there to try to figure it out. And knowing how to use all of your equipment well enough to do it in the dark. Whatever you have with you, be able to do it and do it in the dark. And verify that your equipment, lights, batteries, and vehicles and such are all in good condition to be able to be used out there. And then a few days or more, just a few highlights from that section, emergency information, important, maps and GPS. Review your plans before you go. And then check for warnings, restrictions, conditions, closures. Call the Forest Department, check reviews online for recent trip reports. There's a myriad of resources out there to check recent trip reports. And then the day before, a few highlights from that, batteries, any like lithium-ion batteries or rechargeable items, make sure those are all charged up. That your plan is in writing and on that fridge or texted to someone that you like, or given to someone, and that you have everything you need. And then, there we go. Okay. And then hours, is it touchscreen? It is. Hours before, a few highlights. Double check the weather and your supplies. Just, I just want to minus it.
Oh, you want mine?
Yeah, so I can see the whole thing. There we go. Double check the weather and your supplies. Make sure that gas tank is full before you leave, and message that trusted someone that you are headed out. And also, oh yeah. I didn't put that one in my notes. On the back side of that first sheet is share your plan and what to share. Again, make sure that you do share that plan with someone, and make sure that you're sharing it with someone that wants to see you again. And then call or message them if that plan changes. That's important. If you end up diverting to somewhere else, you decide to park in a completely different location miles away and stuff, that person needs to know that if something does happen to you, we want resources to be able to go and find you as quick as possible. And then there's a list of the information you should share. That's the information that's really important, and that would really help find you as fast as possible and get you out alive as much as with the best chance possible.
I know that mushroom hunters do not like to share their location.
So you need to like them, trust them, and they need to like and want to see you again.
Yes, so find someone you trust.
Yes. And the next one, let's see if it's in the right. Did I go on the right order? Oh, this. Those good.
These are not in the order that they're
No. Aha. All right. A couple more pages back, you've got 10 essentials, and you have probably heard the term before. Make sure you have your 10 essentials, make sure you have your 10 essentials, make sure you have your 10 essentials. That is a number one thing to have, and it's not 10 items, it's 10 categories. And those categories fall under navigation, navigation, insulation layers, wind and rain protection / shelter, sun protection, illumination, signaling, first aid and foot care, fire, tools and repair, and extra food and water. And Jeremy has a really basic little kit to show you how simple this kit can be. It can be extravagant and large, and it can be like this little blue kit right here, or it can be as much as that big bag down there. And but your navigation, that's your basic GPS, downloaded maps and compass. Extra useful essential, also not on their surveyor's tape. And I think Jeremy will mention that later. And insulation layers, synthetic or wool, no cotton. You'll hear that said over and over again too. Don't wear cotton. That's we can't reiterate that one enough. Cotton is a gateway to exposure. Insulation layers, wind and rain protection, and that also includes shelter, and that can be as simple as a Mylar blanket. On this list, it's also considered, shelter falls under that. And then it's worth noting too, just even like a simple little 20 feet of paracord also kind of falls in shelter as well. Sun protection, that's important if there is any chance of sunshine, open skies, snow, overcast, water, that sun protection is important. And illumination, headlamp, flashlight, extra batteries. Those extra batteries are really important if you're stuck out there in the dark. You're going to look at that headlamp or flashlight pretty quick, and that can make or break, whether you're staying the night out there or not. And signaling, whistle, satellite beacon, cell phone. Whistle is really important. It's all really important, but first aid and foot care, tape, blister care, antihistamines, personal meds, small first aid kit. Fire, lighter and fire starter, lighter and, I can't say that 10 times fast, lighter and fire starter. A fun tip is wrap some duct tape around your lighter, and duct tape is a great fire starter. Tools and repair, that can be knife, multi-tool, cordage, which is also useful for that shelter. And then extra food and water, especially if it's high energy. food, and then an additional note on that, a means to purify more water, whether it's like iodine tablets, a life straw, something, if you can. And
So, yeah, so you guys can come up later after the presentation and look at this stuff, what 10 Essentials kit actually looks like. This is really small. This is not what I suggest you take out in the spring and fall looking for mushrooms, right? This is what you would take out if you're going up a trail in the summer and it's just a day hike and there's clear weather in the forecast, right? But this will prepare you for an uncomfortable night out, overnight, if that happens. So it's essentially what you see right here. And this can fit in any backpack. So that's sort of the purpose of this demonstration here. What I suggest, you'll see on the back of that 10 Essentials list is fall.
What's in Jeremy's bag?
Yeah, so that's essentially what does Jeremy bring in the fall when I go mushroom hunting, which I haven't yet, but when I go out there in the fall and I go off trail, right, you're gonna want to carry a bit more stuff, and a lot of it's clothes, right, a lot of it's those layers. So this is what a 10 Essentials kit would look like if you're out there in the fall, right? This will prepare you for just about anything. You're not going to have a comfortable night out there, but you will be prepared to feel comfortable in your preparedness. But yeah, so you guys come up later and look inside these things and see what we use. And, yeah.
What about the backpack?
The backpack, it's there for show. That is my entire SAR kit. That's if I get called out on a mission, everything that I need for the most part. I mean, there's more in my trunk, but that's essentially what I would carry with me. And if I don't need something, and if I know I'm not going to need something in there, I'll take it out real quick before I go. But
yeah, my kit looks very similar to this, about the same size, and that's what we bring out when we go on search and rescue missions. And a lot of it is for us, to keep us safe and warm and dry. We do carries, and then anything for the patient is in addition to this. Anything for we call them patients, the folks that we rescue. We don't call them victims.
Yeah.
They're not victims until we get a hold of them. Yeah, so.
the only thing I have for a patient in there is an extra bottle of water. An unopened bottle of water for a patient. And
Yep.
some snacks, extra snacks, but everything else is my own stuff, depending on how long we'll have to be out there. All right, and our next slide is before leaving the vehicle. That is a handout in there toward the beginning. Some keynotes on leaving your vehicle. Make sure that you mark the location of your vehicle on your map or in your GPS. That's important, especially if you're out there off trail or the trail is split a bunch of times. Knowing the location of your vehicle is quite important. And, use the bathroom or a tree and secure your keys, whether that's somewhere in your pack attached to something and not at the top of a pocket where they'll fall out when you're rummaging for a snack. You don't want to lose those keys. And then make sure your phone's in airplane mode. That'll really conserve your battery if you throw your phone into airplane mode right away. And then start a tracker on your GPS. Starting a tracker on your GPS, if you're using a GPS app, that will help you follow your track back to your car. So not only will your car be marked, but you'll also have the track to follow. If any of you have ever had a hard time finding your car when you're trying to come back to it, that'll really help you get back to it, and you just follow your trail back on your GPS tracking. And let's see, all right, and then National Park Service 5 to stay alive. If you remember absolutely nothing else that we tell you today, remember these 5 things. Tell someone where and when you expect to return, where you're going and when you expect to return. Those 2 pieces of information are extremely important. Research the weather forecast, where you're going, not at home. Home weather forecast doesn't matter at this point. Research it where you're going. especially when you're going out there into any of the wilderness. I guarantee that weather's going to be different than it is at home. And if that weather changes, it often changes different than what the forecast says, and it will oftentimes change for the worse, not for the better. Take plenty of food and water, as well as first aid kit, and take appropriate gear and minimal overnight provisions. That is your 10 essentials that we will talk about 1,000 times. And then bring a light source. That light source is extremely important. A phone, a portable battery charger, even just one of those little, inexpensive portable battery chargers is better than none. And spare batteries for your light source. If you have a flashlight or headlamp, make sure you have spare batteries, at least one set for those. And consider a satellite communicator or personal locator beacon. So if you bring nothing else, if you don't even bring the 10 essentials like we've told you, you absolutely should every time, no matter what. Bring a headlamp and a compass. At absolute extreme minimum, a headlamp and a compass, especially in the fall. When it gets dark, and if there's no moonlight, you can't see the hand in front of your face. You definitely can't navigate the woods in the dark. And if you have a light source and an accurate mental map, you will eventually get yourself unlost. So.
And your phone is not your light source.
No, that will just drain your battery, and then you're really gonna be in some extra trouble. All right, and without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy for how to avoid getting lost when going off trail.
All right, thank you, Ed. Yep. All right, so we're prepared. We did everything on our checklist. We've got everything in our backpack. But that's the bare minimum for like going on a hike, right? When you go off trail, you're gonna have to do a bit more preparation and bring a few more things, right? It's really easy to get lost in the woods around here. But with a little awareness and preparation, it's almost impossible to happen, really. And we'll teach you some basic tips and techniques tonight that if you use them and you understand your limitations of your knowledge, that you can stay safe out there and always be able to find your car and get home. So the techniques taught here are for staying found in a relatively small geographic area, right? This is not for going cross-country through the gates of the Arctic in Alaska. The tips I will teach here are suitable for hunters and gatherers, really, such as mushroom hunters. Beyond this, there's much more to know. We had just said we could do like a whole weekend course, and there'd still be more to know.
Go for hours and days.
But this is what we'd like everybody in the public to understand before they go out there, and especially when they go off trail. And this is also tailored specifically for staying found. I call it staying found in a dense forest, right? It's very different navigating in a dense forest than it is say like even Eastern Oregon, right? Or in Wyoming, or in Utah, or in Appalachia. It's one of the most challenging environments to navigate in, because essentially your sight distance is very short. It's like you're navigating in a fog, right? You're not going to be able to see much out there. We've all been in the forest, right? We've all been there, even at high elevations. We can't see Mount St. Helens. We can't see Mount Adams to be able to navigate and know which way is north. The trees just obscure that so much. There's actually very few high points in Skamania County where you can actually have a pretty good view of landmarks in order to navigate by. So we all know that a failure to plan is a plan to fail. So be prepared. Never go off trail alone, right? It happens all the time, and those are usually the folks that we're searching for, right? There's so much more safety in numbers. You've got multiple brains working, hopefully at least one of you is thinking rationally. Also just navigation is easier with two people. If you must go off trail alone, please spend a little bit of money and buy one of those inReaches, right? They're not, I mean, they're kind of expensive. I don't say everybody has to have an inReach, but
It's pretty miraculous.
so many people's lives have been saved because they were able to just push that button, and the information we got was their GPS coordinates, and we just drove out there, walked into the woods, grabbed them, and walked back. That's the difference between being out in the woods for 2 or 3 hours or being out in the woods for 20 or 30 hours, right? Also, when you go off trail, you want to wear unnatural colors, right? On a trail, like, you're less likely to get lost. When you go off trail, wear unnatural colors, especially when you're with a group. You guys need to be able to see each other, right? We need to be able to see each other, and I think we've all been out there. It's so easy. You don't have to go very far before you can't see your partner, right? And so having those colors helps. That's my rain jacket over there. It's bright neon yellow. Yeah. The other thing you want to bring with you when you go off trail that's not in the 10 essentials is flagging tape or surveyor's tape. And we'll talk a bit about how to use that. And finally, don't go off trail without a map, right? Even when you're on trail, you should have some sort of map and understand where you're going. Can't tell you how many times I've been on a trail and there's other people that are on the trail that have no idea where they're at, even though they're actually on a trail. But that is especially important when we go off the trail, right? Because, and we'll talk about that. So how do we get maps? There is a handout called How to Get Topographic Maps. So nowadays we have great GPS apps that we can install on our phone. And they're not actually that expensive. For $120 a year, you can have Gaia on your phone and have that assurance, right? There's other ones, Onyx, Caltopo, those are some other ones that we recommend. If you don't want to spend any money at all, Gaia and Caltopo are actually free to use, but you won't be able to download the maps on your phone, right? So what you can do is, if you create a PDF of the map on your desktop computer while you're at home, that's a geo-coded PDF that you can load into an app that's also free called Avenza. And Avenza will show you where you are on that map, and that makes it just much more easy to navigate. Essentially, you have a very simple GPS application with the map of the area where you're in. And then finally, Google Maps allows you to download offline maps, right? A lot of people don't know that, but and it's kind of a weird feature to get to. You just go up in your profile and then click on downloads, and then you can download the area of the map that you're actually looking at that point. And when you go out there and you open up Google Maps, you'll be able to see where you are and everything on that map.
Put it in a terrain view.
The what?
Terrain view.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Maps, yeah.
Yeah, put it in terrain view. I don't know if it'll download the satellite, but I don't know. So I've also listed a bunch of other resources here about how to get print maps, right? I recommend that you don't rely on your phone. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, about why do we not just rely on that GPS app? Well, I can tell you because so many things can happen to that, and you're using that tool for so many other things that by using it in all those other ways, it can make it less useful for using it for navigation. So it's always great to have a paper map with you, right? And we live in a great country that has done geographic surveys of the entire area and provides all of that information to us for free. And really easy to access and download online, and then just print them off. So you've got Nat Geo maps, and then the USGS.gov maps are also very good. And then also you can print maps from Gaia, Onyx, and Caldobo. And then you can also buy paper maps. I do not recommend buying or using like a whole map of the Gifford Pinchot, right? That's not going to help you out when you're navigating on foot. You're going to, that's really just useful for driving around and finding stuff. So I'd say do not use a map with a scale larger than 1 to 70,000. And so yeah, so go check out those resources, and now you know how to get maps. Yeah. The other thing you can do, if you do nothing else, just sketch a little map. Or if you have a photographic memory, commit it to memory. But look at the map before you go out. And we'll talk a little bit about how to use that information to navigate and not get lost or become, or to get yourself unlost. Yeah, so how do people get lost? The main reason people get lost is overconfidence, right? They think that they understand how to navigate out there, where stuff is. Maybe they've been there maybe they've gone there 100 times before, right? And stuff happens, right? They just decide, hey, you know, I've never looked over that ridge before. So another big reason is just low awareness of their surroundings. And this is very important for mushroom hunters, because what are we doing when we're out there mushroom hunting? We're looking down at the ground, looking for the mushrooms, right? We also need to be aware of what is around us and be situationally aware. Getting fixated on tasks, such as when you're hunting, stalking game, gathering mushrooms, berries. You lose track of time and distance out there. It's another reason people get lost. We have assumptions of where creeks are, where roads are, and that's why it's good to have an actual map, not just the one that's in your brain. Challenge your assumptions until they are no longer assumptions, right? And the biggest reason, I wouldn't say the biggest reason, but a very common reason that people get lost out there is reliance on their GPS, right? It gives you a false sense of security. And folks always think that if they have it, that they're gonna be able to get home. Well, things can happen, right? You can stumble and break your phone, right? When you're off, like, we're stumbling around there all the time. It's amazing more people aren't getting injured. And you'd be surprised how many people do get injured out there just stumbling around. Well, it's an easy way to break your phone. Drop it in a creek, lose it. One thing, like we're out there in the rain, if your touch screen gets wet from rain, and it's always wet, it stops working, right? So that makes it very hard to navigate and move around.
Let's see, a little stylus.
Yeah.
A little stylus, you could put that in your little bag too, that'll help you.
Yeah, that's a great tip. A stylus will help. It's a little better than your finger. Again, I've been out there with my phone on search and rescue missions, navigating using my GPS, and I'm frustrated because I'm just not able to use it, right? And so you can actually get push button GPSs that would work better in that situation. Your battery dies, right? A lot of people think, my battery usually goes, 10, 12 hours, I got plenty of time, right? Well, all it takes is for one application on your phone to have a faulty update, to have a bug in it that just drains your battery in a matter of hours, right? And you don't know about it because it just updated last night when you were asleep, and now you're out the next morning. And you look down at your phone, and you've only been out there for 2 hours, and you're at 10%. and now you're in the middle of the woods with the dead battery. Yeah.
Cold weather brings battery too.
That's right, cold weather. If you're up in, colder weather or up in higher altitudes, it will drain your battery. So a good thing to do is keep your phone close to your body. Keep that warm, right? Our phone can just stop working entirely. Phones may not be as waterproof as you might think. It depends kind of on your phone and what it's been through. And then GPS, the whole system fails sometimes. Insufficient GPS signals, you may have forgotten to download the right map for where you are, and you just discover that while you're out there. Or your maps were deleted accidentally through some sort of cleanup things, like, oh, I don't need that 100 megabytes, I want that 100 megabytes back. So just have multiple ways to navigate. Don't just rely on your phone. And so let's get into some tips of how to actually do this. The number one tip I give folks is boundaries, right? Familiarize yourself with the topography of the area before you leave your car. Even if you have a map, look at it and commit it to memory, right? And the things you want to look for are some boundaries that are actually going to pen you in to an area, all right? We're looking for linear features on the map, right? So those would be roads, trails, creeks, power line throughways, lots of different, linear features, even ridges, dry valleys, things that kind of go across the map that if you were to encounter them, you would be able to recognize them, right? And so we use those as your boundaries, and then identify a safety direction. So when you're out there, let's actually, let's look at this next slide actually. So here I've got a map, and okay, so let's say we're on this we're at the end of the 32 road, and we decide to park our car right here, and we've got a good hunch that there's going to be some mushrooms out in this area. I don't know why. You tell me. But we walk down this old, unmaintained road, and then we decide in order to get out of this area, we're just going to take a left, right? Well, if we look at our map beforehand, we can identify that we are penned in here, right? We've got this unmaintained road here on the east. We've got this creek that is a solid blue line, which means it's a permanent creek, right? It's going to be there. And then we've also got this main road. This is gravel, and then this is paved down here. And so we know that if we went in any direction, we're going to hit one of these things, and we're going to have some idea of where we are. And we'll be able to use those linear geographic features as handrails, where we can just follow them back to where we want to go, right? So if we end up getting lost and turn around and we don't know which way is north, and we end up getting to this creek and we know it's the only creek in this area, there might be a small creek right here. Maps often do not show creeks, especially if they're not, so you will run across creeks out there that are not on the map. Just know that. There are, I don't know, there might be a million creeks just in Skamania. There's so much rain, so much water out there. They can't put them all on maps. But anyways, you encounter this creek, and you know that you can go either left or right, and you will eventually come to another boundary that will bring you around to your car, right? There you go. The other great thing to do is have a safety direction. So in this case, you will need a compass. You will need to be able to identify which way is north, right? That's why if you bring nothing else, bring a headlamp and a compass, because you will not be able to navigate in the dark, and you will not be able to use this method without a compass. A safety direction is just a direction, north, south, east, west, that you can identify that if you went in that direction, you will hit one of these boundaries. And it will, you may not know if you're like north or south of your car, but at least you're on something that you'll be able to figure it out eventually, right? And so in this case, I would call my safety direction east, right? I know that if I go east, I'm gonna hit this. And because I wasn't far off the road, if I just turn right, I'll probably end up at my car. Yeah. So that's the boundaries. And another big part of navigating out there is awareness. I mentioned this before, that in order to know your way back to a location, it's important to be aware of where you've been and how you got to where you are, right? And the way you do that is you pay attention to things that you went by. Like we do this when we are driving, right? Maybe not everybody with the advent of GPS in our cars now, but we know that we in order to get to Cinema 99, like in my neighborhood, Cinema 99 on Highway 99, I have to turn right at the what's that fast food joint? Carl's Jr., right? And I know that I'm going to have to go past Walmart and Winco, or Winco first and then Walmart to get there, right? And so I know that if I go back, I'm going to have to turn left at the Carl's Jr., go past the Winco, go past the Walmart, and that's going to get me in the direction of home. So out there we don't have streets, right? But we do have those linear features that we talked about. And there's a lot more out there than you might think. Some are just harder to recognize and identify when you're at them than others. So when you're off trail, be paying attention to what things you're passing, and also look back every now and then, right? If you're planning on going back that direction, the way it looks going that way is going to be very different than the way it looks going that way, right? It's like the opposite side of a page, right?
Maybe 90 days sometimes.
Yeah, and so look back every now and then. I recommend every 25 to 50 yards or so, just turn around and look at what the trees look like on that side. What did that big tree that you went over, that you just crawled over, what does it look like on the opposite side, so that you can see it and recognize it when you come back? And then, also do this when you encounter intersections of linear features and you have to decide a direction, right? Those are called decision points, and oftentimes people, even on trails, get lost because they don't recognize the trail, the intersection on the way back, and they end up going down the wrong way, right?
It's really easy to miss, especially if they just slightly Y off, and when you're coming back, you don't see it. It's hidden behind a bush or a tree or something, and
yeah, it's good to just look back. And so while you're moving through the forest or even on a trail, I recommend write a story in your mind, just like I did when I went to the cinema near my house. And just take note of things that you're seeing. Now, we don't have when we're driving around, we've got big things, we can see the Coin 6 Tower, and we can see the Hawthorne Bridge, and we can see these things from a long ways away. But what we can't do in the forest is see these big landmark features out there. And so what we have to do is pay attention to smaller things. So we're going to pay attention to things like downed logs, right? Downed logs kind of create a small linear feature that is easier to see, right? Changes in the grade of the slope that you're on, distinct looking vegetation or rocks, right? Take note of it, that's an interesting looking crook in that tree, like, and when you see it again, you'll know where you are and which direction to go. Pay attention to the ground cover. Is it mostly ferns or slough, or is it rocky, sandy? And then changes in the vegetation, just like the thick, the height, the type of the vegetation. Get to know the trees out there. So, trees out in the woods usually grow, a lot of trees, similar type, grow near each other. So if you're walking through a mountain hemlock area, you can identify that. And maybe you say, well, I walked through a bunch of Doug fir, and then I went through some mountain hemlock, and now I'm in spruce, right? And diameter of trees. So lots of little things to pay attention for out there. And then more importantly than that is just the topography that you cross. Which way are you traveling in relation to the slope that you're on, right? Is it sloping down to your left, or is it sloping down to your right? You'll know that when you come back, if it's sloping down to your left on the way out, it needs to be sloping down to your right when you come back. How steep is it? So you can recognize that slope again. Was it steeper up above, or more shallow down below, so that if maybe you come back from up above, you know that you're on the right slope. What's to the left and right of you? Is there a creek down there? Do I see the sky up there on the top of the ridge? Which direction is the slope facing, or the facet of the slope? Am I on the south side of the hill, or am I on the west side of the hill, right? So these are things that we can remember while we're walking through the forest. Okay, so let's get into some just basic navigation. How are we doing on time? Okay. We got about an extra 10 minutes than we expected. So if you guys just get bored and just really don't like what you're hearing, just head out. But yeah, Roger, you had something? You're good. Okay. Okay, so some basic navigation. Essentially, for navigation, we don't know where we are unless we know where we are in relation to other things, right? We can have a GPS coordinate, but that doesn't really tell us much if we don't know where that GPS coordinate is in relation to the road we're trying to get back to, right? Without landmarks, as we don't have in the forest most often, the only way we can do this is see ourselves in the context in relation to other things is a map and a compass, right? Whether that map is in your brain, but most brains don't operate well as a compass. So again, bring a compass. If we do see landmarks and we know where those landmarks are in relation to us, then we can orient ourselves without a compass. And that's maybe, I'm a mountaineer, I go up in mountains above tree line all the time, and I've got lots of landmarks to look at, and I often don't open my compass, right? Because I know that, if I'm on Mount Hood, I can see the top of the Palmer Lift, right? But we can't do that in the forest, right, so much. So fundamentally, navigation requires that you know two pieces of information. You need to know if you're trying to get somewhere, and if we're navigating, we're trying to get somewhere, right? Which direction is your destination in relation to you? Is it north? Is it northeast? How to identify when you've reached your destination, right? So you may, if you're trying to get to that creek that's north of you, but you aren't able to identify that creek when you actually encounter it, then you may just continue going, right? And so yeah, two pieces of information to be able to navigate yourself around. And essentially, complex navigation is essentially stringing those things together, where you navigate to one point, and then navigate to another point, and then navigate to another point, right? So on planet Earth, there are only two ways to know your exact location. One is to already be at a place that you know where that place is, right? It seems kind of obvious, right? The second one is called triangulation, right? Where we, but this requires that we know of at least 2 other places in relation to ourselves, so that we can take bearings to them and then find where those bearings cross, and then that's our location in relation to those things. However, again, there's no such reference points out in the woods, right? We're not going to be able to see Mount Tabor and then see Mount Hood and be able to triangulate our position in Gresham, right? So without triangulation, which is all GPS is, right? GPS is using triangulation, using the speed of radio signals and a very accurate clock, in order to judge distance and angle to you. But let's assume we don't have our GPS for the whole list of reasons we just talked about. We're going to be reliant on map and compass. Again, even if that map is only in our head. And if you know where you are on a map, and you know which direction to travel to get to where you're going, you are not lost, right? So, yeah, a lot of this may seem like really kind of like common sense, but we don't often think about this kind of stuff in our day. We don't have to use these skills very often until we have to use these skills. And so let's do a little exercise here on about like why it's important to have a map and compass. So let's say we were camping here and then we decided to drive up this old maintained road looking for mushrooms, and we find a great place to park our car right here. And we penned ourselves in, right? We've got this creek down here. You can't see it over here, but this hill kind of drops off really steeply, so that can be a linear feature. That if we find ourselves on a really steep hill, then we might be over here. But we're just out here wandering around with a head, looking down at the ground, looking for those wonderful chanterelles, and we decide we want to go home, right? Well, we don't know where we are in this area because we've been doing this. But we do know that if we go due north, we can find our safety. That's our safety direction, right? That's that road. And so let's say we're over here, or let's say we just go due north. Now, how do we know that we are here, or here, or here, or here, here, or here? Well, you can know that if you just have a compass and a map, right? So if let's say that we go up and we find ourselves on a road that, according to our compass, runs east and west. Then we know by looking at our map that would have to be either this little short thing right here, that here, or maybe here, or down here, right? And so essentially, if you can determine where you're not, then you can figure out where you are, right? So let's say I hit right here. So let's say I hit the road right here, but I don't know that I'm right there. How can I tell that I'm right there, that I'm actually on this section of the map? Well, I can go west a little bit, and if the road starts to go southwise, then I know that I am right here because there are no other areas on this road where it does that, right? And you can do that for all kinds of places. This is a really simple example using a road, but you can do it with creeks, pretty much any other those linear features out there, right? Just by walking around a little bit, you can figure out where you are. Yeah, we got a hand? Yeah.
Is there a size of creek that necessarily will be on a map? For example, if you come to a creek that's only 1 or 2 foot wide, probably not on the map. But if you come to a creek that's 5 or 5 to 10, then it should definitely be on the map. Is there any rules like that?
It's more on whether or not it's an annual creek or not, right? So we get a lot of water in the fall, and it's snow in the winter, and then it melts in the spring. But by the end of July or August, that creek no longer has water in it. So those creeks are much less likely to be on maps. And when they are on maps, they show up as like a blue dashed or dotted line.
The seasonal ones that are dashed
Yeah, seasonal creeks.
or not there.
And those things often are also not on maps, right? Often, yeah, lots of reasons. But solid blue lines are going to be creeks that are going to be there year round, right? Unless it's like a really been like a drought for 3 or 4 years or something, and there's just no water left in the ground.
And sometimes you can tell just by the features of the creek, just like how water-worn it is, if it seems permanent or seasonal.
Yeah. So just because there isn't water in the creek doesn't mean that isn't the creek you're looking for, right? Okay, so that's okay. Cool. All right. So what did we just do? We looked at how to find your current location, use the map and compass, and of course, this is. We're talking basic things here, right? We're not going to leave this room being masters of orienteering. But these are the some things that are really useful for just going off trail and doing what we do. So how to find your way through the forest? Well, so in order to find your way through the forest, it goes back to what we just talked about. Identifying those linear features, and also paying attention and being aware of what we've gone by and where we are. When I was a kid, I mentioned my dad used to take me out backpacking, and so started doing that on the PCT. We decided to section hike the whole PCT of Oregon and Washington. We didn't do much of California, but started doing that when I was about 10 years old. And my dad gave me the map, and it made it my responsibility to know always where we were, right? And so PCT is great. It's a well-traveled trail, and it's got great maps. So he was, and he showed me how to do it. And so while we're walking, I always had the map out, and I was looking at going down the trail, and I would identify like when we crossed one of those creeks, or when the trail turned east, or when we passed that lake on our left, right? And so he could look at me at any time and say, Jeremy, where are we? Point on the map where we are. And because I was paying attention to that stuff, I could point where we are, because we just passed that lake and we've been walking for about 10 minutes, and so we're about half a mile past the lake, right? So yeah, that's basically how to get around. Except off trail, we don't have the trail, right? But if we have a map in front of us, there are plenty of things on that map, such as the topography, to tell us where we are if we're paying attention. Another easy way to get around is just handrails. If you don't feel comfortable out there just wandering around with a map, focus on handrails, which I mentioned are those linear features. So maybe just park your car at a place where the creek crosses the road, and follow that creek out into the woods. And then when you want to turn around and come home, just follow that creek back to your car, using that as a handrail. Now, I know that mushrooms are not commonly found, like, I don't know, maybe not, like right near creeks, right? But you can give yourself an offset. So long as you can tell where that creek is, you don't even have to be able to see the creek. Maybe you only hear the creek or maybe you just have to be confident that you can, that you're not going to leave that creek, right? So you could even be like 100, 200 yards away from that creek and have some idea of where it is and be off looking for mushrooms and be able to just turn around and come back. Okay. Another type of handrail can actually be the contouring of the landscape. That's a bit more difficult to do, but you know, essentially, if you just stay at the same level and you're not going down or up the hill as you're traversing around the hill, then if you stay at that elevation on your way back, you're going to get back to where you were. And more complex things is remembering that, well, I went up the hill and then I traversed and then I went down the hill. Well, when you come back, you're going to have to go up the hill, traverse, and go back down. And then another easy way to not get lost out there is to mark your trail. Make your own trail, right? And that's where the flagging tape comes in, right? So, do I have flagging? Yeah, you can pull yours out. Everyone knows what flagging tape is. It's this really, really thin, biodegradable plastic that, well, yeah, some of it's more biodegradable than others, but but essentially, it's not going to last forever. You guys have seen old flagging tape out there; it's disintegrating. But ideally, we're going to collect it on our way back. But while we're going out into the woods, we're going to strip off about 2-3 feet of flagging tape, and we're going to tie it onto branches that are about eye level, or maybe slightly above eye level, right?
Whenever you'll see it.
Yeah, and then we want to make sure that we can see that flagging tape looking back, because that's the view the perspective we're going to have on the way back. So
Put it with the group.
Yep. So again, like
Where we didn't see it coming back.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's got a story about that. And yeah, spent a lot of time looking for it because it was just kind of, it was spaced too far out, right?
Yep, it was spaced too far,
Yeah.
and then, you know, if you hang it, and then you go forward, and you look back, there's another tree or branch in its way, and you can't see it. So when you go past it, you need to look back and make sure you can see it.
Yep.
And then if you happen to be in an area with a lot of flagging tape already, maybe, you know, a myriad of other people tape things for different reasons. If you have a permanent marker and you just put some symbol or some marking on yours, then you know it's yours, especially if there's other matching tape out there.
Yeah, hunters like to put their flagging tape out there and
Hunters, loggers,
not pick it up.
Other,
you know.
yeah.
So on your way back, take your flagging tape with you so that you don't disorient others out there.
Yeah.
And it's just good for the environment. Okay, we talked about that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Always go down hills the same way you went up them. Well, not the first time I was lost, but when I was a teenager, I was out camping with a bunch of my friends and my dad and some of their dads, and we had made camp at the base of this hill, just off of a road, just a dispersed camp. And me and my friends just decided, you know, we wanted to go on a trail run. So we were just going to run to the top of this hill and then come back down and go to bed, or, you know, hang out more. Well, it was maybe 2 hours or so before sunset, and we were confident we were going to be able to make it back. So we ran up to the top of this hill. Well, at the top of this hill was a big patch of blackberries. And so we wanted to see what was on the backside of the blackberries. And so we walked around those blackberries, and on the way back, we're like, you know, that's kind of rough going through those blackberries. I think there's an easier way down. And so we went down the hill, but we went down the wrong side of the hill, right? We did not go down the side of the hill that we came up. And so we ended up spending all of that night out in the woods with nothing but the clothes on our backs, like spooning each other for warmth. Covered in, we covered ourselves in ferns and stay warm. And the next night we got up and we just picked a direction and walked to it. We ended up getting to a marsh, and the marsh turned into a creek, and we got leeches, and it was a big story. But we followed that creek down, and that creek crossed the road, and then we started walking on the road, and lo and behold, my dad starts driving down the road, and he finds us. Turns out, my dad, so yeah, of course, our parents were a little bit worried when we didn't come back before dark. And so, but my dad said, you know what, don't worry about him, let's go to bed, figure it out in the morning. So what my dad knew that we didn't know was that we were penned in by roads, and that we were not going to be able to leave that area without crossing a road. And he knew that we were not going to just cross a road and just keep walking. So he knew that if he got up in the morning and started driving those roads, he'd eventually find us. So he's not terrible. But yeah. Yeah, don't go up. So essentially, just if you're planning on coming back some way, just make sure that you can come back that way. Don't go up. Sometimes we can go up things physiologically and not be able to come back down them, right? So just don't go up anything you can't come back down safely. And then in terms of just a final navigation tip here is compasses are very sensitive to magnetic fields. So keep your compass away from anything that has current going through it. Any wire with current going through it is going to create its own magnetic field. And so don't hold your phone here and your compass here, because what will happen is that will just start pointing over, and it will start aligning itself with whatever magnetic field orientation your phone is creating. So keep away from the phone, and I mean like 2-3 feet. 2 feet is usually good. Like if you have your phone like in your back pocket, your compass up in front of you, you're gonna be fine. Also, rocks. Don't be standing next to a big rock wall while you're trying to look at your compass. The type of basalt we have out here actually has a lot of iron in it. And it even contains a form of iron mineral called magnesite, which is a magnetic iron. Interesting thing about that is, so, you know, basalt is all volcanic rock. It came out as a lava flow. Well, the direction of the magnetic fields inside of that rock, when that rock solidified, are the same, will always be the same, right? And so it's kind of an interesting antidote. I don't know how it helps us with navigation. What else? Okay, all right. Here's where we're getting. Okay, we're over an hour now. So we're gonna go through just how to get unlost, and no, we'll be good. Okay, so how to get unlost.
If you did have to get lost.
This might be important. All right, so lots of tips out there. I could again teach a whole class about how to get unlost if you find yourself lost in the wood. But essentially, to make it simple, just think stop, right? If you find yourself turned around, you are not 100% confident in the direction that you need to go, stop, right? Stand still, and stop is actually an acronym. It stands for stay put, stay calm, stop. D is think. O is observe, and P is plan. So stay put, stay calm, stop. As soon as you realize that you might be lost, just stop. All right. If you are separated from others, try to get in contact with them. Blow your whistle that you have as part of your 10 essentials. But essentially, this is when people discover that they are lost or turned around. adrenaline starts running, we start to panic, right? And then we start making our IQ just plummets when we start to panic. And so just calm down, give yourself some time, and don't move from that area unless you have a really specific reason to move. Okay? And sometimes if you can't come up with any reason to move, the best thing is just to stay there and let others come find you. It's like go through your mind, go think about all of those things, go through that story that you've been putting together in your mind while you're walking through the woods. Try to recall what you observed on your way in, and again, challenge the assumptions about where you are and how you got there until they're no longer assumptions. Observe. So then, here we want to kind of take inventory of what do we know, what do we have, what can we use, what information can we use to help us get unlost, and then plan your next steps. The first decision that you need to make when you're planning is whether to stay put or move, right? So that's what you're trying to figure out. Is it safer to stay put or is it better to move? And there are all sorts of ways to, so if you stay put, prepare to be there for a while, right? Start working on that plan. If you're gonna move, there's strategies for how to get out. Your number one strategy should be to backtrack, right? Follow, backtrack until you get to an area where you don't know how to continue anymore, and then stop again. And think, observe, plan, and decide how to proceed. You constantly reevaluate while you're moving to determine if you know how to proceed. And then some things you can do wherever you stop, wherever you last. Wherever you end up, where you feel like you're lost, and you backtrack to the point where you don't know where to go any further. You don't want to lose track of that location, right? Because you don't want to get more lost, right? And if you leave that location, you're gonna be, and you don't know exactly where to go. You're becoming more lost, right? And that location is where we will most likely find you, right? Than some other random location you've decided to go to. And so when we prepare a search, we prioritize locations to look based on what is the most obvious place to look first. And that's going to be based on the information we have, probably a lot closer to where you discovered you were lost than if you just kept going. So that's why it's always best to kind of, like, stop is always a good, stop is always a possibility, and just stay there, because you will eventually be found. If you do decide to leave that location, don't lose track of that location, because you may want to explore the area around and see if you can find something that looks familiar and give you a direction to go. But if you don't, you need to be able to come back to that location. And then as a last resort, as a very last resort, and I think a lot of people know this, is just go downhill, right? If you go downhill, you will eventually, in this area, Skamania County is all hills. It's like 95% on some sort of gradient. And so you will eventually encounter a stream, and that stream will become a bigger stream. And that bigger stream will start to go south toward the Columbia River. Even if it has to go west quite a ways before it goes south. But eventually that stream is going to cross a road and will get you someplace where now you're on some sort of, somebody's been there before. So that's kind of your last resort. Don't just think, oh, I'm lost, I'm going to go downhill. Like, stop, think, come up with a plan, and try to get yourself unlost by actually backtracking. And then, yep, okay, cool. So I did have some more information about just kind of like how to call for help while you're out in the woods, and the kind of information that that is going to be useful. Essentially, if I could boil it down to one thing, if you are able to get a call out, let me backtrack. So who do you call when you're lost in the woods? Right? If you're able to get a call out, who do you call? Anybody know? 911, right? This is a life safety issue. Call 911, all right? The very first piece of information they're going to want to know is, where are you? No matter what the emergency, all right? You could be at home. They're going to want to know where you are. You need to be able to tell them where you are. If you have your phone, all phones have a compass app, even if you don't have a GPS app. Open that compass app, copy the coordinates out of it, and put it in a text to 911, all right? And include, did I put the information in here? Oh, okay, sorry. We don't need to talk about this because it's all in the handout. But that's pretty much like, text to 911 will often go out, will often be more successful than making a call. And it's also a better way to get your coordinates to the 911 dispatchers and to search and rescue. If your loved one is out and they haven't made it back if you're that trusted friend who knows the secret mushroom places, and they haven't made it back by the time that they told you they're going to make it back, who do you call? 911, right? Call 911. What's important about that is, what's important about that is you're probably calling from Portland, and your friend might be in Clackamas County or Skamania County. Well, Multnomah County's 911 isn't going to be able to help you much, right? And so you want to make sure that they understand that you are in Multnomah County and you are calling about an incident that's happening in Skamania County, right? And that will allow them much quicker they will instantly transfer you to the Skamania County 911 instead of you having to tell all that information to multiple 911 dispatchers, right? Yeah, I think that's important. Yep. Yeah, I think everything else is on there. I have some tips on how to survive, how to get found. Essentially, how to get found: be visible, be loud, be aware. If you stop, if you lay down, put stuff up in the trees, okay? If you make a shelter, we will be out there in the middle of the night, right? We're not going to wait till morning. This is what we do. So we need to be able to find you even in the middle of the night when you're trying to stay warm, huddled up, around that tree.
So blow that whistle periodically.
Yes.
Too.
And
Hopefully you're not near water when you're doing.
you got your whistles help a little bit. Water can really drone out sound. It's very hard to hear around water, bigger creeks. I recommend, if you're gonna have a whistle, get a loud whistle. And blow that every 1 to 2 minutes. You could wait to start blowing your whistle about the amount of time that it took you to get out there, because it's going to take us about that same amount of time to get out there. We hope that you have a great time out there. I'm sorry I took a little bit too more time. I hope it was worthwhile. And I hope this helps, and nobody ever has to use any of these skills. Hopefully you're using the navigation skills and the boundaries and the awareness so that you never get lost. We hope we never see you guys ever.